Tokyo doesn't scream for your attention. It doesn't need to. The second we stepped out into the city for the first time, I think the only thing I could say was damn. Tokyo somehow feels overwhelming and peaceful at the same time. One second you're surrounded by flashing neon lights, giant LED screens, and some of the busiest train stations on earth. Next, you're walking through a quiet shrine hidden beneath towering trees, barely hearing anything except footsteps and the wind moving through the leaves. The contrast never really goes away. With Google Maps open and Nate confidently leading us through stations, trains, and endless underground corridors, getting around Tokyo became part of the adventure. Millions of people moving through one of the largest cities in the world, yet somehow, everything runs with this quiet rhythm that's hard to explain until you experience it yourself. The trains arrive exactly on time. People naturally stay out of each other's way, and even rush hour feels strangely calm. And somehow, despite how massive the city is, getting around was far more affordable than we expected. Tokyo never felt stressful in the way other massive cities often do. It felt intentional, thoughtful, like every detail had been considered ahead of time. For a part of the trip, we stayed in Shibuya, the beating heart of modern Tokyo, and at the center of it all is Shibuya Crossing, which feels less like a busy intersection and more like a perfectly choreographed performance. The second the lights change, thousands of people flood into the streets from every direction at once. Yet somehow, there's no chaos, no honking, no shouting, just movement. You really must see it twice, once during the day when the city feels electric, and again that night when the giant LED screens light up the streets and everything starts to feel cinematic, almost unreal. At night, Tokyo genuinely feels like you're walking through a movie. And somehow, even after seeing videos of Shibuya Crossing for years online, standing there in person still felt completely different.
Is this Japan's answer to Times Square?
Just steps away sits one of Tokyo's emotional landmarks, the Hachiko Statue. At first glance, it's just a bronze dog surrounded by tourists taking photos. But once you know the story of the loyal Akita dog who continued waiting for his owner long after he passed away, the atmosphere changes completely. Even surrounded by crowds, there's something quietly emotional about it. Not far from there, Tokyo gave us our first unforgettable meal. Tucked beneath the glowing lanterns and narrow alleyways of Omoide Yokocho in Shinjuku, we stepped into what felt like another era entirely. Smoke curled from tiny charcoal grills, while red lanterns illuminated cramped counters packed shoulder to shoulder with locals and travelers. The smell of sizzling yakitori drifted through the air as trains thundered overhead every few minutes. It was loud, cramped, slightly chaotic, and completely perfect. Known as Memory Lane, the area still carries the atmosphere of old Tokyo despite the skyscrapers towering above it. You can wander into whichever tiny izakaya catches your eye, squeeze onto a stool beside strangers, order skewers and cold beer, and somehow feel like you've stumbled into the version of Tokyo you've always imagined. Yes, look at Christian godly girl, you drink liquor. Eh? Convenience stores in Japan honestly deserve their own category of travel experience. What sounds ordinary at first quickly became part of our nightly routine. Stores like 7-Eleven, Lawson, and Family Mart are everywhere, but inside they feel more like miniature food halls than convenience stores. Fresh sushi, warm rice bowls, fried chicken, sandwiches, desserts, all beautifully packaged and somehow way better than they have any right to be. Almost every night ended the same way, wandering into a convenience store before heading back to the hotel, grabbing snacks, trying different Kit Kat flavors and haichus, and realizing that somehow, even the smallest moments in Tokyo felt memorable. This is what you came all the way here to buy? I came all the way to Japan for egg sandwich.
Listen, I heard about the craze, now I gotta try it for myself.
Tell me about the first night here.
So far so good, we flew in, crazy long flight. I think the subway was intimidating and stressful, but we made it back. I really thought we'd end up like on the other side of the city, but that didn't happen, and it's not so bad. Hopefully next day or tomorrow, I guess, will be easier than today's. But I think so.
Never like the back of our hand. We'll be
Yeah,
pro by,
yeah.
we'll be pro by then.
How was the first day?
Yes, the train station just scrambled my brain after a 24-hour no sleep. So, yeah, totally roasted.
Tokyo's quieter side reveals itself early in the morning. We learned quickly that if you want to experience the city's most famous places with even a little breathing room, you need to wake up early. And even after arriving at Sensoji Temple early, the streets were already alive. Before reaching the temple itself, you pass through Nakamai Street, one of Japan's oldest shopping streets. Traditional sweets, handmade crafts, tiny souvenirs, and the smell of fresh snacks fill the narrow pathway leading towards the temple gates. Then suddenly, Sensoji appears, bold and grand against the morning sky. Despite being Tokyo's oldest and most visited temple, there's still a peacefulness to the experience. Visitors pause quietly to pray, wave incense smoke towards themselves for good health, and rinse their hands at purification fountains before entering the temple grounds. Even without fully understanding every ritual, there's something beautiful about simply observing it all. And honestly, that became one of my favorite parts of Tokyo in general, observing how differently people live day to day. One interaction I still think about happened when a little kid, probably 4 or 5 years old, randomly walked up to me and asked if I was American.
America people? America?
American? Yeah.
You speak really good English.
Who taught you English?
Chotto.
It was such a small moment, but there was something so genuine and curious about it that stayed with me long after the trip ended. And just when you think Tokyo can't shift identities anymore, you arrive in Harajuku. Takeshita Street feels like stepping directly into pure creative chaos. For decades, this street has been the center of Tokyo's youth culture, a place where individuality completely takes over. It's playful, chaotic, slightly overstimulating, and impossible not to smile while walking through it. I kept seeing these little stores all over Japan and finally decided to step inside to see what they were all about. Inside were rows of machines filled with gachapon, small Japanese capsule toys that come packaged in colorful little capsules. Part toy, part surprise, and somehow impossible to walk past without trying at least once. Oh, here we go. I don't know. Some Snoopy. I give it to my godson, Stoney. By this point in the trip, we were averaging nearly 20,000 steps a day, completely overstimulated half the time, constantly navigating underground stations that feel like entire cities beneath the city, and somehow still wanting to keep going. That's the thing about Tokyo. No matter how exhausted you are, the city keeps pulling you forward. Sometimes random recommendations can end up shaping your trip. While chatting with another guest in our hotel lobby, Nate heard about a place called Capy Village and immediately decided we had to go. The cafe lets visitors interact with capybaras, hedgehogs, and hamsters while sipping drinks in a surprisingly calm little space. And honestly, after a few days in Tokyo, seeing people casually hang out with capybaras somehow didn't even feel strange anymore. That said, it's probably one experience we could have skipped and been perfectly fine. How does it feel?
Like,
The only ass feel touching for a while.
shut up. This is like matte.
Yeah,
Like it's
like you expect it to be soft, right? Yeah.
Tokyo continued pulling us between worlds when we visited TeamLab Borderless, the immersive digital art museum where nothing ever stays the same. The artwork moves across the walls, spills into neighboring rooms, and shifts depending on where you stand. It feels less like visiting a museum and more like walking through a dream. I read online that tickets often sell out, but decided to risk it anyway and got tickets when we arrived around 4 p.m. We still ended up waiting nearly 2 hours before getting inside. But once inside and everyone spread out through the massive space, it never felt overcrowded. Coming from Miami, I had already experienced a smaller TeamLab installation there. So while Borderless was impressive, I honestly think if you've already done the Miami version, you probably wouldn't miss much by skipping this one. But if this is your first TeamLab experience, it's worth seeing. Nate couldn't come to Japan without finding an art museum, which eventually brought us to the Mori Art Museum and the surreal sculptures of Ron Mueck. His work is almost unsettling in the best way possible. Every wrinkle, every hair, every expression looks impossibly lifelike. Standing in front of his sculptures, I lost count of how many times I quietly thought, how is this even possible? His pieces exist somewhere between reality and imagination, and the craftsmanship alone leaves you speechless. After all the sensory overload, Meiji Jingu Shrine felt like a deep breath. Hidden inside a forest in the middle of Tokyo, the atmosphere shifts the moment you pass beneath the massive wooden torii gate. The noise of the city fades away, replaced by sounds of gravel under your feet and trees swaying overhead. Granny, well on. Talk to the people.
Why are you calling me Granny?
Okay, sorry. Hi, darling.
Stop.
Enjoying yourself?
Yes, that's far.
Huh?
Yes, that's far. I am.
That's far you are? You've been kind of quiet today. What happened? You hungry?
You think?
Not really, but yeah. Okay, you got a long gut.
Yes.
Walls of colorful sake barrels line one side of the path, creating one of the shrine's most photographed spots. Nearby, visitors pause at the purification fountain, quietly cleansing their hands and mind before stepping further inside. In the courtyard, worshippers bow twice, clap twice, then bow once more before saying their prayers. It was one of those rare moments where Tokyo seemed to slow down completely. Near the main hall, thousands of wooden prayer plaques called Emma swayed gently in the breeze, each one carrying a hope, wish, or message of gratitude from someone passing through. Reading the handwritten notes in different languages becomes a quiet reminder that no matter where we come from, so many of us are wishing for the same things. But eventually, the city always pulls you back in. So Nate, tell me about the park.
It was a nice experience and a way to get a better idea of kind of the culture here in Japan.
One night in Shibuya, we visited Analog Record Bar, a tiny vinyl listening bar hidden behind an unassuming entrance. Inside, warm lighting, vintage speakers, and shelves stacked with records created a kind of atmosphere where hours can disappear without you noticing. Here you pick out a vinyl record, hand it to the DJ, and wait for the moment your song fills the room.
Under the pressures of your life, run it up. No stay down, mama time, pick it up.
There's usually a small cover charge and drink minimum, but for the atmosphere alone, it's worth it. Places like this are what make Tokyo nightlife feel special. Intimate little corners hidden inside one of the largest cities on earth. Toward the end of the trip, we stayed in Ueno near Ameyoko, one of Tokyo's busiest market streets. Hundreds of tiny shops sell everything from sneakers and cosmetics to fresh seafood and street food, while conversations and music spill into the street from every direction. And like so many travelers before us, we eventually found ourselves buying an extra suitcase for all the things we didn't plan on purchasing. Watching tourists drag giant overloaded suitcases through crowded train stations honestly became funny after a while, mostly because we eventually became those same people ourselves. By the final days of the trip, Tokyo still didn't feel finished. If anything, it felt like we had barely scratched the surface. This is all these two do is eat. This is all we do. All we do is eat.
Yum, yum, yum.
They had the biggest meal at the last restaurant 1 hour ago and they're eating again. And this one, all she does is eat. All she does is eat. It goes off to her butt. Tokyo made me realize how different daily life can feel when a city is designed thoughtfully and people genuinely respect the space around them. A place where chaos can inspire and stillness can move you at the very same time. And by the time we left, the only thought I kept having was simple: I shall return. Because no matter how much of Tokyo you experience, it always feels like there's still something waiting just around the corner. And honestly, there's nothing else quite like it.